Welcome to the State of CRM podcast. I'm Matt Engstrom.
And I'm Ben.
And we're back after a few weeks off. I know that it's been an exciting and interesting summer for a lot of people, a lot of vacations. I hope everybody in the audience has been enjoying it as well. And we are looking forward to posting on a regular basis once again. So now that everybody's back in the office for the next few weeks and have enjoyed some of summer a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
So today we're going to be talking about something pretty relevant. I think obviously at the top of a lot of marketers' minds, especially folks in the retail category, but also beyond as well, which we'll talk a little bit about. And that's back to school. And I know that a lot of marketers have been planning for this event as it is a major consumer event for months now. But we're going to talk a little bit about how actually there's things to consider even in the moment when you're marketing, and things that can help you build strategy even after you've sort of launched campaigns and you're starting to get learnings from them and whatnot. So back to school is obviously a huge consumer opportunity, not just for sort of the or related products around like school supplies or apparel or some of the different categories that come to mind when you think of back to school. There's also opportunities for other products as well that you might not necessarily directly associate with students who are going back to school. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But I think Ben and I were discussing this a little bit in advance, and he was talking a lot about kind of that opportunity and how there's a lot of potential different consumer products you could push for an event like this where pocketbooks are opening and consumers are going either in-store or online to shop. So kind of kicking it over to you, Ben, how can a marketer be strategic about this with all these potential opportunities? Like how can they push so many things in a product catalog that might be relevant?
Yeah. Back to school, as I said, that's the moment, the period, the events for the next weeks. Next week's back to school communication, we see that's across all industries, for sure, for everything related to students, but that can be any type of products, and like other period in the year, actually. When we see, holiday season, Black Friday, back to school, Mother's Day. There are a lot of different events during the year for sales, and back to school is one of them. The specificity of back to school is there is a big focus on certain type of products. Often, some other are most likely not the ideal product for the for this period. But we never know what are the situation from every consumer, every people out there. So that can be an opportunity for everyone. And that being said, that means if you are a retailer and you are selling products, you might have a lot of different products to promote or offers to showcase. And the question is coming, like every big event, the question coming is, how do you promote all these products to your consumer, to your database, to your user? And you have, I think, two different choices. If we want to simplify all of that, two different strategies. One is just ticking the box of promoting, showcasing all the products with the minimum effort as a marketer. That's building, infinite skyscraper product lists. So you are sending a communication listing everything at once. So that means you are building effortless communication, building one creative with everything into it, selecting a huge audience, mass communication. That's a way to try to showcase all your products to your entire database. The issue with this strategy is, first, you have to make a choice. Which product will be the first one? What will be in the hero banner? What will be the second line, third line of product or offers? And you need to make choices. So what's apparently is a good solution, an easy solution to communicate with your stakeholder, with your colleagues that wants their product or their category to be highlighted in the communication and saying that, oh, that's in the newsletter and they will be happy. Yeah, but if they are displayed like 6 kilometers after scrolling from the head, that won't appear. And that, I mean, consumer, they don't, man, you don't scroll to the bottom of the newsletter, or maybe you scroll to the bottom but you don't look at what's in the middle. Or, I mean, there are a lot of different cases, and there are a lot of analyses out there that showcase and explain what are the reading rate of your communication, but you can't promote everything, and everything can't be highlighted at the same time in the same communication. We'll come back on the audience selection later, but the other issue with this type of approach of strategy is that some of the provider, like Gmail, they're no longer displaying the full email. So when it's too long, in some cases, and that's their criteria, I had some newsletter with the call to action, with the stop, and I'm talking about this message saying that, do you want to see the rest of the content? There is more content, but do you want to see the rest of the content? And as a user, you have to click to say, oh, I want to see more. I already saw a lot of product, and I have to click and confirm that the display, I will be displayed more products. And for the same sender, sometimes I have the message, sometimes not. I mean, that's not random, but as a consumer, that's random. I'm sure that's not random on their side, but that's an issue, because you, as a marketer, you think that you are promoting some products, even if they are low in the ranking of the communication. They are appearing really low in the bottom of the communication, and actually they are not displayed. So you don't know if they are really your consumer are exposed to these products, and can guess that impacts the performances.
Yeah. And I think, like I think you were mentioning that there's sort of like another element where I think marketers assume then if they sort of personalize that skyscraper, that somehow that will generate more engagement. And like marketers use different data to be able to say like, hey, so and like personalize the messaging and whatnot. But to your point, if even in a personalized skyscraper email, the products at the bottom or in the middle or wherever they're not getting attention are simply just going to be ignored, and potentially like those nobody's going to purchase something that they aren't exposed to, that there's no advertising for. So in a world where you have lots of different products to promote and a short potential window. That's another thing too, back to school, these different tentpole events, as we call them, there's a short window of promotion. It's not like evergreen. You have an opportunity to hit it, and then that opportunity is over until the next year. So even in this case, there's sort of like this urgency around it, which I think then lends itself to exacerbating or amplifying the reaction to basically start throwing things into long emails or blasting out your database frequently with different, offers that may or may not be relative to different folks. And I think like, obviously there's a better way around that. And you talk a lot about marketers needing to not take the lazy approach. Basically, there's a better way.
And spoiler alert, yes, you have to roll up your sleeves. That's require more work, but you need to work a little bit more or differently to get better results. The other approach is to be relevant from the beginning. You were mentioning the personalization. We're not saying that personalization is not the way to go. That's the right path for having a personalized relationship, building a personalized relationship between your brand and your consumers. The issue is to have everyone received somewhere this 4-product personalization module at the bottom of the communication. I mean, that's bringing nothing. One of the reasons that's, I'm sure that's bringing no value to you as a marketer is that if that was really working, you would have put that module instead of the hero banner in first place in your communication. And And so the way to be relevant from the beginning, as you said, that there is really a short amount of time to be relevant for this specific back to school period, is to split your communication, to organize them by type of product, type of offers, categories, and send them to the right audience. So that's mean making shorter communication, focus on one type of product, even on one product sometimes, and being sure that you are selecting the right person, the right audience for this communication. Because as we were mentioning on the lazy solution of doing a skyscraper email or communication, but talking about email right now, you are making a choice for the 1, 2, 3 products, the priority of your product in the communication. You will do the same, but some people receive what would have been the number 4 or 5 in your skyscraper as a top banner because they have a better interest. And no, that won't be a one-on-one personalization communication. But guess what? That's not what you are doing on the other side neither. You are making a choice to promote and to showcase one product with a higher priority than the second one. And that's user that is interested in the 5th, 6th, 7th one in the newsletter. They may be not showing see it, or the image will be smaller or whatever. The solution of building multiple communication will give the same type of exposition, same type of display size of the image for the people who are interested by this product. And that's where you get more performances. That's where you are more relevant because you will have really an accurate product showcase to a small group of people with interest for this product.
Yeah, and I think with tentpole events, and like obviously we're talking specifically about back to school, that understanding that data is so important, and it becomes a bit more challenging because there's sort of this element of shifting consumer behavior from what is the norm in the ways that people, not only what they buy, but how they're shopping. Whether it's in store or online, the holiday season versus back to school versus whatever tentpole we're talking about, consumer behavior and also intent shifts quite a bit. And I think a lot of marketers tend to kind of maybe overlook the fact that things are very different, or even not just different from a regular period, but different year over year. And I know, obviously over the last year and a half or so, there's been unprecedented change in the way that people shop. And back to school, I think, is probably a even more significant example of that. As we know, last year was the first year, I think, in all of our recent or maybe total memory that a lot of people were homeschooling at a massive degree versus people going into or students going into the classroom. And so even that in and of itself is a massive consumer shift. And this year is different than last year in the sense that we probably have a little bit of both of that happening, where depending upon the district that you're in or where you're at in the country, you might be still at home or you might be in classroom, and all of that means that sort of the data that you could rely on if it's 6 months old or even taking the same period back to school last year is going to be vastly different from how the behavior is going to be of back to school consumers this year. So in order to be able to develop that strategy, not taking the lazy approach, making sure that you're still pushing out a high volume of products, but the products are targeted towards people that they're relevant for. And that's really the personalization that you're talking about. Understanding data from like a recent perspective and being able to capture that and use it is so important for marketers developing an audience building and targeting strategy in this time period for back to school in real time. So that's something that people really need to be thinking a bit about, is sort of the data that they're actually looking at to help inform the strategy that you just mentioned.
Yeah, and that changed recently. This type of behavior changed recently in the last years, as you mentioned. But trying to give a concrete example is that, like 5 years ago, back to school period, if you have to, or if you know that one of your consumer has a 12 years old kid at home, you most likely know what they will need for their back to school period to go back at school. And year over year, okay, that's changing, but everyone getting in this cohort of people with 12 years old kid will most likely buy same kind of product.
Yeah.
If you compare 2019 to 2020, the pandemic hits in the middle, everything changed totally. Fine. This year, what's changed is you can't rely neither on what's happened in 2019 or the 10 previous years, neither on what happened in 2020. Yeah. Because some, as you mentioned, that some of us, with kids will have still homeschooling. Some will be hybrid. Some will be in person. The kids will be the students will be kids or students will be in person, back to in person. So, and depending on the country, the states, where you are on the planets, that will be different. That will change again next year. But what's changing this year is the fact that some people, that was the first time ever, they had to equip or buy material or equipment or some type of furniture for homeschooling last year. Maybe they had their kids, their students going in person last year in September. Fine, but they maybe had to buy something else or different in different way. And this year, if they bought a laptop to do a remote learning last year, most likely they won't buy another one this year. So you can't really, what I'm saying is that you can't rely on what's happened last year and say that, okay, that changed because of the situation, the global situation, but this year nothing changed because we are still in the same type of situation. But that's the second year after a first time thing, and you can't rely on that data.
Yeah.
What you need to do and where you can rely, what data you can rely on is the really fresh and recent data. What's happening right now? What your consumer are buying right now? What they are doing now on your website, in your store, what type of product they are buying. That's the data you need to rely to be the more, efficient or proactive, and you can have the best predictive behavior from this data.
Yeah. And and like that data taken in aggregate is like exactly what you said. It's not just one consumer point, but it's sort of using that to identify shifts in behavior where you can use that to understand this is the type of person that's looking for this type of product, whether it's apparel, a shoe, a backpack, a shirt, a pencil case, some sort of lamp for at-home schooling, whatever it is.
I see you have your list for going back to school. That's your listing your product.
Exactly. I'm like, what did I buy as a kid? I'm sure it's changed significantly since then, but I won't age myself today. But yeah, I think like to your point, there's when you start looking at macro data points and you start looking at kind of everything that you have on individuals, you can start to build profiles of people who are buying the products that you're pushing, and that's when once you've been able to build those audiences, then you can target your email communication or multi-channel. We're talking a lot about email, but again, like that's a whole other thing about optimizing across channels for the audiences that are there. But that's when you can start sending targeted campaigns with relevant offers that are personalized for those groups of people based on what you know about this year. So it's the data last week, the data 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago that can tell you the most. So I think a lot of strategies from a marketing perspective, even from targeting and audience building, probably have already been set, maybe months in advance in terms of these are the types of people we're going to be targeting. But there's an opportunity right now as those campaigns are running to drive people either in store or online to take a second and say, hey, what data are we bringing in now? To your point, who's visiting our website? Who's buying X, Y, and Z? Who's engaging with certain products, categories, et cetera? And then also who's actually buying these things and what do they look like? And that data is actually going to be the most important piece to help you target better.
Yeah, definitely. And the more efficient way of doing that is, nowadays the technology is here to help and data science data models, AI definitely is built and is built to help with that. But you can have an internal data science team. You can have audience building team, or a team working on building audiences. You can have a platform that helps you to do that. That's different ways to do that. They are more or less advanced, they are more or less effective, but that will be always better than doing a batch and blast.
Yeah.
That will be always better to bring every single product in the same communication, hoping, or more than hoping, but thinking that that's the best way to expose all your product to all your customers.
Yeah.
That's not building a good relationship with your consumer. That's not effective in terms of performances. You are sending a huge volume at once, so your metrics, even the vanity metrics of the email, that the thing that you need to get away from, that's just being eyes on open rates. That's important to follow, but that's not the metric you need to follow as the main metric. All of that's not the best way to get the best performance on these KPIs. And we are talking about performance of KPIs. Nobody cares about the performance of KPIs. What you want is to sell the product and achieve your goals, your objectives. The best way to increase that and to progress and to make progress over time, that won't ever be by doing more mass and skyscraper emails. So that's the time to start. There was a spoiler alert before that require more work. That doesn't mean next week for your communication for back to school or in 2 weeks, you will create 20 campaign focused on product or offers if you are not doing that already today. But start with 2, 3.
Yeah.
The following weeks or following months, think about 5, 10.
Yeah.
You need to ramp up progressively and you need to start now because you'll have to do that sooner or later. That's the best way to continue to achieve your goals.
Yeah, and from a creative perspective, you have a lot of those assets already available to you. If you have, different product displays in a skyscraper long email, you can cut those up and use those, to help you push out more specific campaigns. So also you don't need necessarily to reinvent the wheel. And to your point, the best time to start is today. And start incrementally, and then next year you'll be able to do even more for more precise targeting and audience building for back to school. So I guess in short, don't, consider putting a bit more effort into defining your audiences based on the data that's available to you so that you can, avoid sort of the pitfall of the skyscraper email, be a bit more targeted, and that will ultimately lead to not just higher sales, and this is what we've actually seen from clients who take this approach, is higher sales, but also reductions in things that measure customer fatigue, like unsubscribes, opt-outs, things like that. So it's definitely a win-win strategy.
Yeah, and the bonus is that on the long term, the strategy is scalable. You can continue to improve your strategy and improve all of that on the really long term, where the other solution is just a dead end.
Absolutely.
So, that was a very interesting topic to be back on the podcast. We are happy to broadcast the content and our discussion. Again, if you have topics we want to talk about, if you have questions, and we'll we'll answer that live. You'll discover the reply during the show. Don't hesitate. Contact us. Send us an email. Contact us on LinkedIn. We are happy to take any question, any suggestion of topics. That's really for the audience and you who are listening us. That's we are doing that. So don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you very much for listening, and look forward to having more episodes in the upcoming weeks.
Yeah. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.